Welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today we're talking about Xbox versus PlayStation 5. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Lots going on. Lots gone on. Played a lot of games now over the last year. Since I started this channel, I've gotten to know both of these consoles a lot more, and I've seen a lot more of the capabilities of what they can do. I've played a lot more games on them. I've played every first-party game on both of these consoles, as well as a lot of third-party games across both consoles. So I would say my experience is pretty extensive when it comes to the next-gen consoles. So what this video is attempting to do is help you find the best value. Now, the best value might not end up being the best quality, or the best quality might not end up being the best value at the end of the day for everybody. So what we need to ask ourselves is, first of all, does Xbox deserve a second chance? Last generation was pretty rough for them. They came out, they didn't have a lot of exclusives, there wasn't a lot going on. It wasn't until, we literally got, Halo, Gears, and Forza throughout the whole generation, with a couple of other little things sprinkled in, like some Sea of Thieves, some other things. But at the end of the day, Xbox did bring out a more powerful console last generation that gave you a better experience on a 4K TV, in my opinion, than the PlayStation 4 Pro did. So, and along with that, you got, with the beginning of this generation, you got a lot of upgrades to a lot of those games. If you bought those last generation on the Xbox store, you got a pretty decent amount of free upgrades and quality of life changes, 60 FPS, 120 FPS on some games, as well as, and we will include the Series S in this one now too, because I do have one of those. So we'll add that in there. We're gonna try to identify the best value going forward for gaming. So let's start with PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is a solid console. You do get pretty dang good, you get a pretty good quality image on a 4K TV with that. Granted, a lot of those games are going to be running at native 4K 30 frames a second. There are the outliers that you are going to get up to 60 frames a second. VRR support is coming, but to tell you the truth, my experience so far in the PlayStation ecosystem has felt pretty to the point where, you got to choose. It's one or the other. You get beautiful visuals or you get performance. And it's not so cut and dry as that. It's not that cut and dry. It's you get 4K pristine, beautiful looking image, or you get 60 frames a second at 1440p, and sometimes you lose a lot of detail, a lot of image, a lot of stuff goes with that. Now, if PlayStation would implement a 1440p, a native 1440p, so that you could use a monitor, I think that would be a perfect sweet spot for the PlayStation 5. Now, other amazing things about the PlayStation 5 is if you want to be a content creator, you got a built-in capture card. You can do up to 30 minutes of 4K 30. I think it's like an hour and a half or something of 1080p at 60 frames a second. You can edit, upload, and put that straight on YouTube right from your PlayStation 5. So if you can stream directly to Twitch, you can stream directly to YouTube. So if you want to be a content creator and you don't want to go through all the stuff like getting a laptop or a PC or capture card or any of that kind of stuff, you can literally start your channel with a PlayStation 5. That's actually how I started mine. So PlayStation 5 has a lot of benefits to having a PlayStation 5. Now, PlayStation 5 has hit the ground running, pretty much delivering exclusive content throughout the generation up till now. We've had, there's been plenty of stuff that they have dropped. Now, the biggest obstacle I see in that is these games are $70 when they launch. So you're going to pay $70 up front, and you might not get the experience that you were expecting because like I said, I've had to choose a lot. The price for me hasn't been that big of a deal. It hasn't really affected me to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go broke. It's more along the lines of having to choose, and this has turned me off on a few games, like having to choose between, because once you see these games running at 4K 30 and how beautiful they are, and then having to choose something lower than that, it really creates a wedge in your gaming experience to where you're just like, ooh boy, I do not know how I can, like it really does. It creates a wedge a lot of the time, especially for me, especially if you, I sit pretty close to my TV, so that 1440p and that lower, the lower visual settings and stuff like that pop a lot more than it would be if I was sitting farther away. So this might be something that matters less to you than it does for me. The PlayStation 5 does implement and use a lot of checkerboard rendering on a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's okay. You get the instances like with Horizon Forbidden West where it just does not hold up that great in the 60 frames a second. And it does. It alters the experience to the point where it's like, my gosh, man, because once you see that game at 4K, it's hard to go down to what that looks like. And that's just being honest. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to throw shade. I do believe PlayStation 5 is a solid console. I do believe that they have brought to the table the most powerful PlayStation 5 that they have ever done. And it is, in a lot of regards, a very comparable system. Like you get a lot of third party support. You get a lot of content, that's tailor made for the PlayStation 5. Now we're gonna go ahead and switch that over to the DualSense controller. This is probably my least favorite part of the PlayStation 5. I'm used to like the heavy rumble of the Xbox controller. Like I really like that with the haptic feedback. It's a lot lighter feeling, but it is more fine tuned to where you can feel like different things a little better. But there's just not enough oomph to it to like really give you a satisfaction of like when you're skidding across the ground, you don't feel that rumble as much. It's really faint. The triggers, I don't like them. They do not do what I thought they were gonna do. I personally prefer the motors in the Xbox controller. They feel a lot better, and they deliver the same, pretty close to the same feeling the PlayStation does, just without the extra added friction of how the adaptive triggers work on the DualSense. So that's probably my least favorite, but it is serviceable. It is manageable. And the way the thumbsticks are set after playing with the Xbox for so long, you just kind of get used to where, and it feels so much more natural for me anyways. Especially with a lot of the type of games that I play, the Xbox controller just feels a lot more natural to me, and it feels more natural, whereas the PlayStation kind of feels a little foreign, in terms of just. It is kind of hard to swap back and forth. So that's the biggest thing. So at the end of the day, the PlayStation 5 is a solid console. Definitely I'm not going to say anything about well built or not, because I don't know how the newer model is going to act. I got a launch model. I don't know how, with the new heat sink. I feel like personally they just over engineered it. When they did the whole boost clock thing with the PlayStation 5. I don't necessarily think that was as planned as they make it out to be. So I think that's why they went with the bigger heat sink at launch, and then they tested it a little more, and they're like, oh, we don't need that much. So then they put that in there. So I think they'll probably be just fine. There is the coil whine in the PlayStation 5. That is so far it hasn't given me a problem. I've had mine for over a year now. It has not really given me a problem. Yes, you can hear it. Yes, it's funny. It's fun to crack jokes, everything like that about. But at the end of the day, I think the PlayStation 5 is a solid system. In my opinion, it is the best PlayStation ever made, in my opinion. Now we're going to move over to the Xbox Series S. Now the Xbox Series S for $299. Without a disc drive, fully online. You have to buy your games digital. You have to buy. You basically, it's designed as a entry-level Game Pass machine. Now, with that right there, with that being said, if you buy an Xbox Series S and you hook it up to a 1440p monitor like I have, it will deliver, in my opinion, it has delivered the most consistent experience out of the three in terms of, being able to hit its 1440p or give you 60 frames a second, drop into 1080p, which, let's be realistic, on a 1440p monitor at 1080p, it does not look bad at all. That's like going from, it's like literally going from 4K to 1800p. That's about what it looks like. It's not even that bad for real. Everything still looks sharp, still looks clean. You're getting, you do in fact have more 60 FPS games and 120 FPS games than the PlayStation 5 does. You have a stronger CPU than the PlayStation 5 does, but you do have a weaker GPU. That GPU is going to max out around, with a native resolution, you're looking at like, anywhere from 1080p to 1440p. So that's not bad. But if they were to use like checkerboard rendering or some of the other upscaling techniques, they could probably get you higher. They could probably get you to 1800p easy. So I do think the Xbox Series S is a good buy if you're going to hook it up to a monitor and you're going to hook it to a Game Pass subscription. I think that you will ultimately find more than enough value out of this console. So the biggest thing with that is storage space out of the box. You get like 367 gigs of storage. Now that can be eaten up really quick with just one or two titles. If you're a Call of Duty person, you're probably going to want to use a different. You're going to want to get upgraded. You're going to want to upgrade your drive space. Now you can use an external hard drive. And a lot of the games that have been upgraded to Xbox Series X and S, as long as when you look in there, if you look in the menu, you can see if they are Gen 9 aware. If they're Gen 9 aware, you don't need super fast storage to run those games. It is a pretty well built console. It's pretty small. I mean, we're not going to dwell on the Series S too much, but I do believe that. I don't necessarily think I would recommend buying it as a stopgap. Like if your ultimate goal is a Series X, wait till you get a Series X. Unless you have use for a second Xbox console somewhere in your home, like in the front room or in the bedroom or something like that, then maybe use it as a stopgap to play newer games, whatever. But I don't recommend buying that to use as a stopgap. Just because of the fact that there's no disk drive in it and it is an online only machine. It possibly could be a little bit harder to get rid of that if you needed to, or you might end up having to just give it away. So at the end of the day, I do feel like the Series S is one heck of a bang for its buck. But at the other point, if your desire is a PlayStation 5 or if it's a PlayStation 5, yeah, definitely get yourself a Series S. Then you can enjoy both ecosystems even after you get your PlayStation 5. But I don't know if I would recommend doing it until you get a Series X. Like that's fully up to you and your financial stability and what you can afford to do and what you can't. So that's up to you. I don't know if I'd recommend doing that, but I mean, I have one for my YouTube channel, so that's why I have one. So let's move on over to Xbox Series X. Now, Xbox Series X has a more powerful, GPU, a more powerful CPU than the PlayStation 5, but you wouldn't be able to tell. Like so far, a lot of stuff coming out is basically being built to parity. Everything looks the same across PlayStation to Xbox. There are some underlying titles that are running higher resolution on Xbox. There are. They just maxed out the resolution, whatever. There are some games that are performing, a little bit better on the PlayStation 5 performance-wise. So there are those like nitpicky items that like literally it falls down to nitpicking. Like I don't think either one of those are better. If one's got higher resolution, but 54 frames, I don't necessarily think that's better than. I don't necessarily think something with lower resolution at 60 frames is better. Nor do I think that having higher resolution is better than It's kind of weird. That literally falls down to taste. Most people are going to prefer. Most people are going to be fine with the resolution and a couple frames off. Like most people are going to be fine with that. But that doesn't stay the case for long. In my opinion, and in the time I've had with these consoles, the Xbox Series X version usually gets patched. It usually runs better. There are more games that will come out on the Series X that will offer an unlocked frame rate mode that will go up to 120 frames a second. Dying Light 2, Godfall that just came out that was previously a PlayStation 5 exclusive. That there does have a 120 hertz mode as well as an unlocked frame rate mode. If you have a 120 hertz TV with with VRR, you can play the resolution mode at 60 frames a second, and that is really nice. That's like one of the biggest things that like made me like look at Godfall a little bit differently and be like, wow, man, this game is actually not that freaking as bad as it was. I'm going to be honest though, when the game first came out and I bought it on PlayStation 5, it was rough. It was rough. They have worked hard to rebuild and reset and reinvigorate that game, and it seems to have paid off. So far, I'm about 10 hours into it on the Xbox version. I had about 5 hours in on the PlayStation version. So yeah, so far it feels like they've done a lot of good with that. Now, Xbox basically comes with VRR support, 120 hertz support. You get Dolby Vision support, as well as, they both have auto low latency mode now, whereas the PlayStation 5, you cannot turn it off now. It's literally on. Once it's on, it's on. And the Xbox does come with a lot more backwards compatibility built right into the machine across all 4 generations of Xbox. Now, that's all fine and good. And let me tell you why I appreciate that, because that was one of the biggest selling points for me to upgrade to my Series X first this generation, because I've normally been a PlayStation guy since the PS1. That was why I upgraded to my Series X first, was because of the enhanced backward compatibility across generations that I was going to get and receive just for upgrading. So that's kind of like being in the PC space and then upgrading right over to a, upgrading your CPU or your GPU or something like that. That's kind of the way I was looking at that in the beginning. And I mean, for the most part, I believe that paid off really well, because I've gotten to experience and enjoy my old games a lot longer after purchasing them digitally. I've gotten to enjoy them a lot more, and the experience gets better. Now, that's not to say the PlayStation doesn't offer a pretty decent, it does offer backwards compatibility. There is a lot of stuff that they went in there, touched, fixed up. You've gotten some, pretty decent AAA games that have been updated. With the PlayStation side, you've had to pay a premium for a lot of those games. You've had to pay a $10 upgrade fee on a lot of that first party stuff, some third party stuff. So at the end of the day, with the PlayStation 5, you are going to pay a premium for a premium experience, or you're going to be waiting until things go on sale. And the beginning of the beginning of this generation, I wasn't seeing a lot of sales. Man, I got my PlayStation 4 4 months into the generation, and I still paid full price for Godfall 4 months into that. So it's been one of those things where it's like, I'm an early adopter. I don't care. I want to see what my PS5 can do. Here's your $70. Come home. Wow, that doesn't feel like $70. It looks like a PlayStation 4 game. It's upgraded. And so that's been my biggest struggle with PlayStation 5 has been, like the lack of things that it has compared to the Xbox, or, the waiting game for a lot of stuff. The games being overpriced PlayStation 4 games. I don't believe none of these PlayStation 4 games should be, I don't think they should be charging you $10 for upgrading the visuals for a console that clearly could push those visuals if you just put it in your PC and hit the button, boom, it's right there. We will close this out a little bit with my feelings on the PC now that I have one. Xbox Series S, one hell of a bang for your buck. If you are not into like the high quality gaming, if you're a casual gamer and you just want something to play next gen games, Series S is the perfect freaking console for you. You hook it up to a 1440p monitor, 1080p if you must. 1080p TV is not going to give you the 120 hertz or any of that kind of stuff that that you would get with a 1440p monitor, but it will still deliver a 60 FPS experience at 1080p. So that's up to you if you want a 65-inch 1080p TV, or, because, You can get it. You can get a 1080p TV, a 65-inch 1080p TV with 120 hertz support, but you're not going to get the freaking. You're not going to get. It's going to be really hard to try to find something with HDR support for that. So you're leaving HDR on the table if you go with a 1080p TV, and I mean but you will be able to get up to 120 hertz. I mean there's ways to get the 120 hertz on a 1080p display. So, Xbox Series X. Xbox Series X is what I would call the best bang for your buck when it comes to being able to hook it to a 4K TV and use all of the features for 2.1, as well as get one heck of a value on games and software for that experience. Now, when it comes to upgrading your storage, PlayStation wins because you can get up to 2 terabytes for like $150. If you're willing to take, if you're willing to take a chance on SSD or whatever, putting that in there yourself. Proprietary for Xbox. They are hot swappable, so that definitely wins out. You don't have to open the case. You can pull it out, put it back in, whatever. So you are paying for that, for the luxury of being able to pull that in and out, and the what is it? Easeability of it. The experience is, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. If you buy a lot of games like I do, you're going to need to upgrade your storage. If you don't buy a lot of games, that's probably not going to matter to you. It's probably not going to be that big of a it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. So when you gosh, why is it trying to play all this stuff? So when you think about it that way, you're still going to get more of a bang for your buck with the Xbox due to the fact that you can sign up for Game Pass. Now, PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Plus is now going to be combining with PlayStation Now. They're going to have 3 tiers. They're going to offer a bunch of different stuff with that. Whereas with the Xbox, you got Game Pass Ultimate. Game Pass Ultimate, it saves me a ton of money. It will save you a ton of money. And it will give you a backlog like you've never, ever thought you would ever have. I'm cautiously optimistic that PlayStation Plus, when they merge, that it's going to be a good service. I really am. I'm cautiously optimistic. I do think that Microsoft needs a little bit of competition. I think healthy competition will help both ecosystems grow. If people are talking about oh yeah, well I got, PlayStation Now and I get these games and blah blah blah, and then people will be like, oh yeah, well I got Xbox. Healthy competition will help will help everything race. So I really hope that PlayStation does come out and really compete with Xbox Series X in that department, because it will create more business, more revenue for both companies, and they'll both be able to increase what they put into those services, so that'll be better for everybody. We will all win. We will all win. So, now let's dive a little bit into PC. Okay. I went and I bought a $1,700 PC. Yes, it does outperform both my Series X and my PlayStation 5 and my Series S, well over whatever, it's solid. And I paid $1,700 for that. Now, is that worth giving up the console experience for the PC? Now, I do plan on doing a full rundown on the PC and really talking about my experience, in one of my longer winded videos, here in the coming days or whatever. But as it sits right now, if you've got the money, if you have the money and you can do it and you can afford it, and you can literally go to Best Buy and find one on the shelf if you haven't bought a next gen console yet. The biggest thing is you're not going to be able to get you're not going to be able to get your PlayStation games on there just yet. But Xbox, anything you buy on the Xbox ecosystem, you will get 2 copies of that. You'll get a PC copy. You can see for yourself. I'll tell you right now, the Xbox to PC, mainly you're getting a lot more frames per second, but visuals are pretty freaking close. They're pretty close. You are getting, a little bit better, but not to the point where it's oh my gosh, that's way better than the Xbox Series X. No, the Xbox Series X is probably the closest to the PC experience on the market right now for a video game console. Now, the PlayStation 5 is close. It is close, but it is lacking so many basic features that would give it more options that it just doesn't really fit in that niche. Like it doesn't fit just quite right, but it's close. So at the end of the day, I do feel like Xbox is a better value overall for being able to have content, software, and being able to have money in your pocket still. PlayStation 5, you're definitely going to pay a premium for that. I don't really necessarily think one is completely better than the other one. They both have their strengths. They both have their weaknesses, but they both have a compelling reason to own one or both consoles this generation. So that's my updated take on this. That's how I'm feeling right now today after all of the stuff that I've played. I think this generation started off a little slow, but it is definitely getting better. And I do think that Xbox deserves another chance. They've made a lot of changes. They've made a lot of strides to be a better company and to work harder for your money. As far as content goes, every person's needs are different. They've fully met my expectations for a console platform, like they have. PlayStation's fully met my expectations for a platform in terms of exclusives and content on their platform. So I'm genuinely happy with both ecosystems. When it comes to certain types of games on the Xbox, I receive that through my third-party experience. Like I get everything I need on the Xbox platform, and I can get everything I need on the PlayStation platform. So that's how I feel about it. Xbox deserves a new chance. PlayStation is still doing exactly what PlayStation does. Things are getting better. There are some things that I'm worried about with PlayStation and live service games, stuff like that. But there's also things that I'm worried about with Xbox and not being able to deliver on the whole AI experience, the cloud experience with integration into games. I've seen it done with Flight Simulator, so I know it can be done. I do believe in it now. I'm really optimistic and excited about it. I do feel like if either company was going to have the best shot at like true next gen games, I do feel like Microsoft is in a better position to deliver an experience we've never seen before that we didn't even know was possible. So I'm glad I got both. I don't regret having either one of them. So that's basically how I feel on it. So if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.